Hey guys, so today we're going to be jumping into a top 10 units list for Dragon Ball Legends. This is going to be the July 2024 edition. As per usual, I am going to make some things clear before we jump into the actual rankings. Every character is considered at 14 stars, best teams, best equips, max title boosts. Number 2, every character ranking in this list is going to be their current ranking as of the current meta environment, not who is strictly better than who. Number 3, this list consists of rankings that are entirely of my own opinion. I am basing this rankings off of the standard rating match system, not off of Rating Match Proud. And to go along with the third point here, which is that this is based off of my own experience, matchmaking is still currently not working as intended. It is still currently matching you up with people based upon the region where your account was created, not where you currently are located. So I actually have much more experience with the current meta playing in the NA meta as opposed to the Japan meta. So there is a bit of an inconsistency in terms of this list maybe compared to the list that I made, basically every single list up until this point, because they've all been based in the Japan meta, which is where I live. But because my account was created in North America, I've been fighting only North American players, or I guess people that live in that region, to where I'd be matching up with them. So I actually have been playing in a different meta than normal. So there may be some different rankings on this list compared to what I've done on the prior list, but that is just simply because of the matchmaking differences. So with those points in mind, let's go ahead and jump in, and we'll start with number 10 and we'll work our way up to number 1. Coming in at number 10, we have Zenkai LF Kid Buu. I think this guy is a very, very good Zenkai character. The only thing with this character right now that I would probably say we don't really know his full potential right now, because it's really hard to put him on a powerful opponent or regeneration setup to where he can look his best, because those teams right now aren't the best. And even like powerful opponent, which can be pretty decent, you're not really going to want to focus the team around Blast, which is what this character is. This guy is like, he's not like, oh, he's pretty good strike wise, he's pretty good blast wise. This is a very, very polarizing character in terms of his offenses. He is basically a hyper blast focused character. He draws blast cards with his green cards, and he's constantly drawing blast cards. Like, this is a blast heavy character. I believe he has a much higher blast stat than strike stat too. Yeah, it's a lot higher. That is it's almost 20k higher. That's a lot different. So powerful opponent, he's not really going to work on too well. Even regen, I would say he's not really going to work on the greatest right now. I think his best team by far is the Majin Buu Saga team, which can be pretty good. Remember, his unique equipment does want him to be alongside other powerful opponent and regen characters. So even on a Majin Buu Saga, you're not really going to realize this character's full potential. But I think he is good enough, even with that in mind, to be at number 10. He works pretty well alongside the LF Ultimate Gohan. Even when you're fighting against a character like the fusing Super Vegito, if he rushes Gohan, Gohan will remove his buffs. Kid Buu can swap in with his endurance and live the rush. I found that Kid Buu's card draw speed reduction effect whenever he gets hit is actually really effective against Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, because that Gogeta is not immune to attribute downgrades and abnormal conditions. So this Kid Buu actually can be pretty effective in putting a stop to Gogeta's long combos, and the same goes for most of the characters in the game. I think Super Vegito is the only one that doesn't really care about those things. But overall, a very slippery character, vanish back very fast. He can snowball really hard if you get a bunch of green cards with the every 4 counts he's getting ki, he's getting damage, and he's no, it's not damage inflicted, it's debuffs on the enemy. But this guy can do a lot of damage. He can combo for a long periods of time. And I think without seeing as many Ultra Gohans in the meta after Gogeta's come out, this guy definitely feels a bit better to use. And overall, very good character. I'm pretty excited to see what this guy can do if they decide to give us some tools for regen or powerful opponent that would supplement this character and what he wants to do moving forward. But I feel pretty comfortable with this guy, number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Number 9, we have Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. It's kind of amazing to say that he has fallen a lot of spots on the list. I remember back during part 1, I was like, please, God in heaven, give us an Ultra character in part 3 that will crush this guy. And that's pretty much what they did. They made the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta very, very effective against Gohan. So I'm going to put him at number 9 on this list. That doesn't mean that he is like, oh, he's washed up, he's never going to be good again. I think there is a very, very high chance that 3 months from now, even 2 months from now, this guy might be back in the top 5 on the list because this guy's kit is going to age very, very well. Counter gauge, he has the AoE green card, he has the counter blue card, he has the amazing last man stand potential. He's on Sun Family. He's a blast character, which Sun Family has kind of positioned itself to be able to go like 2 ways. You can do a blast setup for the team, you can do a strike setup for the team. There really aren't that many inherent weaknesses with this Gohan, so I don't really feel like this guy's in like any sort of danger of being like permanently crippled or anything. Right now is just a very tough environment for this character. I think this guy doesn't match up very well against Fusing Gogeta Blue. I don't think this guy matches up well, obviously, against Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. I think Fusion Zamasu can definitely take this guy out very easily. Golden Frieza destroys this character. But I think with as powerful tools that he has, including the armor break, which again, I seem to be one of the only people. I started seeing a few other people talk about this now, just because I think I've hyped this up to the level where people are starting to notice how busted it is, and it has been busted since this guy released. But the armor break mechanic is actually just beyond stupid, and every character on the team has access to it, not just this Gohan, because he inserts those cards that have armor break into your deck that you can draw. So every character on the team that you're using can use the armor break cards with this character. This guy has just too many things going for him to where he's going to be falling off permanently. This is not a situation where it's like, who's a good example of this, where it's like Ultra Janemba, where it's like Janemba was really, really strong against like Ultra Vegeta Blue, and then once we got the Legends Fest characters, it's like all of a sudden he's just no longer around. I don't think that's the trajectory for this character. I think he will make a very strong comeback because inevitably we will be getting more Sun Family units. That's just the way the game is. And as of right now, I think he is about as good as you could expect from a green unit. Green is just not in a very good spot right now. It's just the way it is. He does pair very well with Purple Ultimate Gohan, of course. He still pairs really well, I think, with Ultra UI Goku. So he has a few characters you can use alongside him that will, I think, leverage what he wants to do pretty well. But it is just tough to make use specifically out of this character, especially against a character like Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta that, at least in my experience, again, I'm playing in the NA meta this entire season so far. He's basically in every single match. I've maybe fought less than 5 matches the entire season so far that did not include Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta on the enemy team. So again, it's tough to make use of this character, but I think given the situation, he is strong enough to where he still can make an impact, and that's pretty impressive considering the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta just omnipotence, I guess, that seems to exist right now. So I'm going to put him at number 9, but would not be surprised if in a month or 2 from now he is starting to creep back up, or maybe is even like 4 or 5 spots up higher on this list, because this guy is just a cheat level character with what he's got access to. So I'm going to put Ultra Gohan at number 9, and we'll move on to number 8 next. Number 8 is going to be Ultra UI Goku. So this is going to be a very connected spot on this list, I think, to the Fusing Gogeta Blue spot. If you guys go back to the tier list I made for the last video, this was a few weeks ago. This was the June, because last video I did was not a top 10. It was more of a tier list, a tier list rankings. I'm going back to the original, I guess, format for this video, which is more of a strict ranking, because I think I'm more comfortable doing that with this one. There aren't as many shared spots on this list. But I made a comment in that video saying that it feels to me, based on the designs of both this character and the Fusing Gogeta character, that there really aren't going to be that many situations where I could really see the Fusing Gogeta character having a lot more value than this guy. They're on most of the same teams. They have the same color. They're both yellow. They're kind of doing the same thing where, like, you could even argue that this Goku's lock-in mechanic, the anti-cover change mechanic, is just a better version of the assault chain mechanic that the fused version of the Gogeta Blue has access to. But then they released Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and it seems to me, at least, that they almost went out of their way to design Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta in such a way that Gogeta would perform incredibly better against him than UI Goku would. UI Goku cannot simply lock Gogeta in and kill him and snipe him with an ultimate. If you are the Gogeta player and you are getting comboed by an opponent Ultra UI Goku, there is no reason to do anything. Like, you don't even need to force the lock-in. I would just say let him combo you, let him activate your gauge, and then once your gauge is activated, at that point you can, I guess, try and force the lock-in, because even if UI Goku would then go for an ultimate, you would counter it with your gauge, and UI Goku wouldn't even be able to rush you, because remember, when Gogeta activates his gauge, when it's filled up all the way, he actually seals Rising Rush. So they really designed the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta character to essentially counter this UI Goku's anti-cover change mechanic. That's not to say that UI Goku still can't hold his own defensively against Gogeta. Obviously, he has type advantage, and the anti-strike gauge is still pretty effective in halting combos preemptively. So it's not like he's a completely dead character. I just think his main asset that he brought to the table in being in like some sort of like super anti-purple sniping character, that tech does not work on Gogeta essentially ever. There, I guess, could be like 1 in 50 fights where you might actually get lucky, and let's say the opponent preemptively swaps with Gogeta, forcing the lock-in. If you have a Rising Rush with UI, you can, I guess, lock-in rush the Gogeta. That could be a situation I could see happening, but in most situations, you're really not going to be able to get that snipe in with UI Goku against Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and because of that reason, I think there has been now a significant discrepancy between the effectiveness of this character versus fusing Gogeta. And so again, I'll sort of make the reverse argument that I made in the prior video, where in this current meta environment, I really don't see any value that this guy has over Gogeta, just because of Gogeta's additional value that he has against Gogeta. Even the pre-fuse version Gogeta, the ability to, you know, trigger the gauge, get the counter out of the way, and then just, you know, before you do that, preemptively queue up a tag switch so that you can tag switch immediately and draw a card to be ready to counterattack and be ready to fight against Gogeta after he's locked you in for a few counts upon triggering the gauge. So it's just tough for me to put this guy so much higher up on the list, even though he is technically type advantage over Gogeta, because there's just a better character on most of the same teams as this character that I think is a more effective, you know, tool against the main menace of the game, which is Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. But again, not to say this guy certainly won't stick around. I think he's going to age very well with his dodging gauges, with his subcount manipulation, with the green card generation. Not all characters moving forward are going to have such a design that allows them to skate past the anti-cover change mechanic. So you'll definitely see this guy being highly ranked moving forward as well, similar to Gohan. But as of right now, I feel comfortable with him being number 8 here. So let's move on to number 7 next. Okay, so for number 7 and number 6, I have a shared spot between Ultra Golden Frieza and Super Baby 2. It was pretty tough for me to decide on who I wanted to put higher. I ended up making this a swappable position. If you were going to ask me who I think would be higher, I think I probably would say Ultra Golden Frieza, but it's not by a lot. I would say that Baby right now definitely has the superior teams, because GT just got a monstrous buff with the Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. But I think Golden Frieza easily has the better individual kit. The thing to me that I would give the edge to Golden Frieza with, like that for me at least would put him ahead of Baby, would simply be the fact that you can't get Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta cannot one-shot this character with an ultimate. I've had a lot of instances where even like 8-star Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogetas are literally from full health one-shotting my Baby. Like, Baby is a very strong character, and he's one of the better counters. I would say he's the second best counter in the game right now, actually, to Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. But that doesn't mean Gogeta can't simply one-shot him with an ultimate. Gogeta's ultimate is just insane. It's one of his, I would say it's his second best tool besides his unique gauge. The ridiculous, just almost Rising Rush style ultimate. So the fact that Frieza has one of the only tools in the game that isn't really that affected by the ultimate, the comeback mechanic, like comeback and indestructible are really the only two mechanics in the game that aren't severely hindered by Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's ultimate, right? The only thing that'll happen is your first life will get taken away, and then Frieza will do significant damage back to Gogeta. I actually think that's pretty important, and I haven't really seen many people talking about the comeback damage on Gogeta, because that damage, that will rack up a lot of damage on Gogeta, and it won't progress his gauge to fill up any more than it has already filled up until that point, because that damage doesn't trigger the gauge to fill up. So that is pretty important to remember. Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta typically is a character that you're kind of like whittling down throughout the course of the fight. He's not really somebody that you're killing in one hit unless you're rising rushing him, or unless you're hitting him with your own Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta ultimate. What happens typically is you get him low, he fills his gauge up, you pop the gauge, you get him low, he fills his gauge up, you pop the, like, it's kind of like a boss character almost. And Golden Frieza, I think, is a character where if he's on a very juiced setup and you give him a lot of, I guess, you make him the center of your attention a lot of times, he is one of those like super offensive characters that sort of can just kill him with an ultimate or something like that. With a blue card, could do tons and tons of damage. Golden Frieza's team's simply worse, though, than Baby's teams are. And just Baby having type advantage, having the gauge that will stop the combos earlier on in the fights, I think a lot of times is going to be more important than what Golden Frieza contributes early on. But I think there are pros and cons to both characters. I think Baby, again, is in a better spot in terms of meta right now than Frieza. But Frieza, specifically against Gogeta, with the ability to not care as much about that ultimate. Like, if you're using Frieza and your opponent is using Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, your opponent is going to be very hesitant to just pop the main ability and ult you, because they always know that Frieza's like right there in your back pocket. That's not going to be affected by the anti-revive, because comeback is not treated the same as revive. Whereas with Baby, Gogeta at any point can simply just pop the main ability and ult, and you just gotta hope that they're not strong enough to one-shot your Super Baby 2 from full health, which has happened to me many times. I've gotten my Baby one-shot from full health many times. So Baby's a very good character, and I think he is able to do well. Like, Baby, you can have his full gauge active. You can actually snipe Gogeta's out with Baby's ultimate. But a lot of times, remember, even Gogeta defensively is type neutral if he's had his Disrupt activated at half health. So Baby's effective, but it's not always consistent. Whereas I think, again, the comeback on Golden Frieza is probably, I think, just a little bit too strong to have Baby and Golden Frieza on the exact same footing, which is why I personally, I think, would put Frieza a little bit higher. But I think there are definitely instances where Baby will look better than Golden Frieza, and especially just in terms of teams, he looks better. So, again, it's tough to really say one over the other. That's why I made this a shared spot. But you guys can let me know who you think right now is better. I think they're both in a pretty good spot right now, but I think as soon as Golden Frieza starts to get better teams, better characters that work with him, I could see him starting to pull away from Baby, because Baby right now is in a very, very good spot. There really is only one incredibly powerful red character floating around right now, which is Fusion Zamasu, who's pretty common. I mean, I think he's definitely more common in my experience on NA, and I think the reason why is just because people have higher stars on him than other characters, whereas on JP everybody just has everything at 14 stars or high, at least 12 stars. So it doesn't really matter as much, whereas in NA people have lower stars on newer characters. So Zamasu, in comparison, I think just looks better on NA than in the JP environment. But this is number 6 and number 7 on the list. We have Golden Frieza and Super Baby 2 as a shared spot. Let's go ahead and move on to number 5. All right, coming in at number 5, we have LF Zenkai Fusion Zamasu. I don't really think there's many things that we need to say about this character. He's just enters the battlefield and then just pummels you with that gigantic arm. He just does so much damage. This is a character, I think I actually mentioned this in the prior video as well. This is a character where he can kill you at any point. You make one mistake, you drop combo, this guy enters the battlefield, main abilities, green cards you, and then just kills you with a type neutral ultimate that does like 4 million damage or something. Like, you have to be ultra cautious against this character. The only other character I feel like that has the same amount of burst potential as this character is Gogeta, is Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, just because of the ultimate damage. This guy switching in, if he just hits you with 2 strike cards, if you're not a blue character, you're taking like at least half your health and damage. Like, it is crazy how much damage this guy does. One thing that has surprised me after his Zenkai Awakening, and again, I think I've also mentioned this in a prior video, is his bulk. This character prior to his Zenkai, even on release, this guy was a glass cannon. And that's why people were upset about the way that they designed his unique equipment, is because this guy was not supposed to get a unique equipment that enhanced a feature of the character that was not like the main part of why this guy was good. What unique equipment should do is they should focus on what will give the character, like what changes to the character would make them effective at the point where when the unique equipment releases. Like, I think they actually did a really good job with the Trunks and Vegeta equipment, right? The Trunks and Vegeta equipment focused primarily on the Vegeta side because the Vegeta side really needed the help super badly. And I think they were on the mark with that equipment. They just didn't give that equipment enough for that character to really be relevant. With Zamasu's equipment, they focused on completely the wrong thing, which was basically almost entirely defensively oriented. That slot 3, which just heals him whenever he falls below a certain amount of health. He wasn't even really able to make a ton of use of that third slot, even when the equipment came out, because he was still a glass cannon and he would just simply get one shot, or like you either didn't take damage or you just instantly died with the character essentially. Now, after his Zenkai, I think I've made use of that a lot of times. I've seen opponents make use of that heal a lot of times. The healing is actually really, really relevant. So, as a defensive character as well, who's able to fare well against all these yellow characters, right? Baby, Fusing Gogeta, UI Goku. He can definitely sit in there and just take hit after hit and be fine because he's increasing his damage reduction. He's lowering the opponent's ki. Overall, I don't really have anything really too negative to say about this character. The death buffs upon death, he's debuffing the opponent's AoE green card, his main ability giving him the endurance nullification for I think it's 30 counts. So overall, just a really strong character. And as a Zenkai, I am very, very impressed that they made him as good as they did on Zenkai, because even LF Zenkais we typically don't see even half as good as this character. So really, really strong unit. Gonna put him at number 5 here. Let's move on to number 4. Okay, so I once again have a shared spot at number 3 and 4. I think once we get to the top 4, there is a pretty big jump. Well, I don't know if it's a massive jump, but there is a bit of a jump between 5 and then the rest of the list moving upwards here. So I have Purple Ultimate Gohan and Fusing Gogeta Blue at 3 and 4, respectively. For this spot, to me, these guys, I mean, it's really hard to compare these characters because they're both really doing different things. Gogeta, I mean, I mentioned a lot of what this guy's value is during the UI Goku spot, who's number 8 on this list. With the release of Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, it really does feel like he was designed to be weak to Blue Gogeta. It really does feel that way. I think yellow characters are in super high demand right now. There's a lot of really meta viable purples. We have Ultimate Gohan, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, Golden Frieza. And I think there are only 2 red characters I really see running around, which, I mean, aka running around. I mean, I only really see one running around, who I'd say is Fusion Zamasu. I see the occasional Super 17. I see the occasional Supreme Kai. Other than that, like, what other red characters are we even fighting? Like, none. There's like no other red units. But Gogeta Blue, I think, is in a really good spot. He is able to do a lot of damage. I think the pre-fused version of the character, I've never downplayed or talked negatively about the pre-fused version of the character. I think they've always been incredibly strong. Them killing green cards is actually really, really annoying. I'm sure at this point you guys have experienced that as well. Whenever the pre-fused Goku and Vegeta use a green card, they destroy the enemy's green cards, and that actually really does matter. It kills Gogeta's AoE greens. It kills Ultimate Gohan's Vanish Restoration green cards. Killing opponent like Super Vegito pre-fused green cards can mean they can't swap in and out, so it really does matter a lot. I think the tank job this character is able to do against Gogeta is probably as good as you could hope for from any character. There's really no one else that can tank as well against Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta as Fusing Gogeta Blue. Don't forget that the most important thing to remember is the Assault Chain mechanic can actually bypass Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's gauge. I think the Assault Chain has gained a lot of value, but I will maintain my thoughts that it should still have been better. I still do not think the Assault Chain mechanic is as good as it should have been, but certainly it has gained a lot of value from the release of Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta with his gauge. However, I will say that there have been a lot of instances when I've been using Gogeta Blue or when I've been fighting opponent Gogeta Blues that have been assault chaining my Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, or I've been assault chaining the opponent's Super Saiyan 4 Gogetas. I mean, it's just, remember, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta at half HP goes permanently type neutral defensively, and he has a tough, like Gogeta with the assault chain has a tough time finishing off the opponent's Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta a lot of times. It's because you're not drawing cards. And when you're not sidestepping to drawing more cards, like, it's just, you have what you have in your hand, and once that is done, your combo is done, and you can no longer progress. So, again, has he gained a lot of value? Absolutely. I think this character is a lot better than he was even on release, but he should have been better, I think, still. But still, I have him in the top 3/4. So he's in a really good spot right now. I think this is probably the best spot we're ever going to see him in, unless like the next release also is like a like a strike unique gauge like purple unit. Like I don't really see how he can really gain a lot more value from where he is right now. This is like one of the premier characters to use in this meta. So Gogeta's of course really good. But then Ultimate Gohan, I think you can kind of put him in like a different bucket from the rest of the characters we're going to talk about here, because he has a lot of defensive utility that most of the other characters don't have. I mean, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is like a different level altogether, but like this guy kind of reminds me of like Blue 17-ish, but he's a lot more offensively capable than Blue 17 was on release 2. The fact that he's removing buffs, the fact that he has uncancelable endurance when the enemy rushes, when the enemy ultimates, when the enemy blue cards, and pairing him up with other characters on your team that have endurance means that they can't die from those effects as well. I think this is a character where we're going to see him just be thrown onto leader slots of a lot of teams moving forward. Like just throwing, I think just throwing this guy on like leader slot for Fusion Warriors is probably what you want to do, honestly. That's what I'm considering for my God rank this season, is just taking this guy, throwing him on leader slot for Fusion Warriors, and running like Gogeta and fusing Vegito or something as the team. Like that team is absurd. That team is ridiculous. You could obviously throw on Blue Gogeta there as well. So this guy's super flexible. The blue card generation, the green card generation, his ultimate, his ultimate with the drop combo tech, it's not as strong as Gogeta's for sure, but it's pretty close because it also is type neutral. I have fought many Gogeta Blues with this Gohan, and Gohan has straight up one shot from full health fused Gogeta Blues with his ultimate. That's how strong this thing is. So this guy can do a lot. He's very versatile. He's very flexible. He can be thrown on a lot of different teams in the leader slot. And I see this guy aging very well moving forward. The only thing I'm kind of concerned about with him is going to be how well he's able to just sit there and tank combos, which is kind of similar actually to Blue 17. That was one issue that I had with Blue 17 when he first dropped, is how well does he actually tank? And that was, I think, something that contributed to his eventual fall off. Right, Blue 17, I think I would consider him to be okay. He's just okay right now. But to be just okay this far after his release, a year and a half, like that's pretty good. That is pretty good. So I think this guy should age very similarly to him. And this is what I have for spots 3-4 again, or /4. You can put them in either order. It doesn't really matter to me. But let's move on to number 2 next. Number 2, we have Fusing Super Vegito. You guys definitely know how these guys work at this point. I think the thing I can say about this character is these guys feel like the most... They can... Well, I don't know if they do feel... They can feel the most unfair in the game. I have had some matches recently. I think even in a recent video this happened to me. One combo, they get their fusion, and I have my rush ready. How do you... you literally just instant... first combo of the match, you lose a character. And right now, there are very few revival characters being used. What are the who's using, or what revival characters are being used right now? The only one that comes to mind is like Nappa. That's the only one that I could see on occasion being used. No one's using Pikkon right now. No one's using Revival Kid Gohan right now. No one's using Revival Cell right now. No one's using Revival Frieza right now. It's really just on the 1 out of 30 matches you're gonna fight Vegeta and Nappa. And even if you do fight a revival character, these guys have an anti-revive mechanic, which I would be very happy to Rising Rush against. So in mirror matches where you're fighting, again, the most common team that I'm fighting easily right now is Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, this character, and Fusing Gogeta Blue, just like the 6th anniversary Fusion Warrior team. I think in that matchup, the reason why I personally have this character above Gogeta, and I think a lot of people are going to start putting Gogeta above this character, but I mean, after fighting against that matchup as often as I have, I think it is just very clear to me that I would much rather prioritize this character's development over Gogeta's, because if you get a rush with this character, you will essentially guaranteed kill someone, right? I would rather have the guaranteed Rising Rush kill from this character fusing than the Assault Chain from Gogeta, easily. I think the Assault Chain from Gogeta has easily gained a lot of value after Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's release. I am not denying that. I've mentioned that many times in this video at this point. But it's still not at the level where I'd prioritize getting that over the development of this character, getting them their Dragon Balls, getting them their Synchro Gauge charges, getting this character to Vegito and getting the Rising Rush out, guaranteeing a kill. That's how you win matches. That's why this character, I think, is just more valuable to me, and that's the main reason why I have them at number 2 right now. Just getting them developed and getting them into Vegito so you can win the fight. This character as Super Vegito with the Rising Rush is really the only character right now that I feel is on the level of Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Like, this character's crazy. This character is insane. And the fact that when you have a dead ally, they can just immediately fuse and, again, basically have that... I almost want to call it like a comeback mechanic with the Rising Rush, because it's like, again, you just get Rising Rush on this character and you just die. Right? The only characters that are going to survive that are green units that guess this guy's Rush. But, like, what green units are you using right now? Quickly, name one green character you're using. The answer is not God Goku. I've maybe ran into 3 or 4 Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohans since Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's release, so nobody's really running him either. Who is defending against this character? There is nobody defending against this besides Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and even Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta just simply dies to this Rush. Right? You don't even have a hope, because even if you guess him, you still die. So, I don't know. This character probably feels like one of the more oppressive units right now, just because they get going, and if you get lucky with the cards they're drawing, they can green card into swap, and then green card into swap, and then they're just getting Dragon Balls, which can't be destroyed, and then they're building up their gauge, they're comboing you for 60, 70, 80 combos in a row, then they're fusing, and then you just die. It really does feel crazy. And then remember, they are permanently, when they have their full gauge up, they are permanently type neutral defensively as well, so even if there were green units that were being used, they wouldn't even take, like, the Vegito version of this character wouldn't even take like some obscene level of damage. And we did see that prior to part 3, when Gohan, Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, was very, 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 very prevalent. So I think the value of this character has even gone up higher since part 3's come out. Like, this character's value just continues to go up and up and up, and this is one of those releases where it's like I could really see them not aging whatsoever until we head into Legends Fest, that's pretty scary to think about. So we'll see what other characters release in between now and then, but I can see this character being around for a long time. They're very, very oppressive, and we're gonna need some green monsters to drop to really put a dent in this character's dominance, I think. So fusing Super Vegito is going to be number 2. Let's move on to number 1. All right, so coming in at number 1 on the list, we have Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, to the surprise of absolutely nobody. This guy is absolutely obscene. I don't really think you guys need me to tell you everything he does. He's essentially in every single match. I mean, at least that I've played since he's dropped, everybody's using him. There really is no like crazy counter to this guy. I mean, yeah, you can make the argument that fusing Gogeta Blue is counter to this guy. You can make the argument that Baby counters him, UI Goku, all those yellow characters. But you could just as easily one-shot everyone with this guy's ultimate. I think when they first showed this character, I think they probably spent a little bit too much on his gauge. Like, his gauge is probably the single most oppressive thing about this character. But, like, the ultimate on this like, what were they thinking with the ultimate damage that this guy does? It is basically a rush. I have had 8-star Gogetas on the opponent's team one-shot my 14-star Baby that's like Zenkai buff, now like 3.5 million health. Like, it honestly feels that it's almost a Rising Rush level attack, the ultimate. And not only is it doing as much damage as it does, it destroys your hand, it's going to lower your Dragon Balls by 3, it has an anti-revive mechanic which makes you revive with 70% less health. What, like, if you go through the list that I have on this video, the top 10 characters, who is surviving an ultimate from this character? There are 2 units on this list that would survive an ultimate from this character. The first one's Golden Frieza, because it was come back, and then the second one is Ultimate Gohan, assuming he's switched in at that time. Right, Ultimate Gohan will destroy Gogeta, will remove Gogeta's buff effect, so the anti-endurance effect will actually not be there anymore. So So Ultimate Gohan and Golden Frieza would be the only two characters on this entire top 10 list that would survive an Ultimate from this guy. And that's not even, I mean, the gauge, this character has really the first unique gauge that like directly power creeps special cover change nullification. And it even works against blues. It even works against ultimates. So the strategy that I like to use with Gogeta, and of course it's going to depend on the situation. It's not like this is a thing where it's like, oh, you always have to do this. It's going to be situationally dependent. Is typically, if I have the chance to do this, I like to get the gauge set up with this character and then switch. And so that my opponent, who's also using Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta 9 out of 10 times, can't simply just ultimate whenever they want. Right? Your Gogeta with this gauge up on standby will serve as a deterrent to your opponent's Gogeta to not ult. Because if the opponent's Gogeta then goes for an ultimate, you can nullify that with your own Gogeta by switching in and cover changing and stopping the ultimate. So there's that. There is just, I mean, again, I mentioned this earlier in this video, but this guy essentially feels like a boss, like a raid boss or something. You don't, well, I guess you could like one-shot him from full health. It is very uncommon and rare to do that. More often than not, you're chipping away. You're chipping away, you're activating his gauge, you're getting rid of the charge. You're chipping away, you're activating his gauge, you're getting rid of the charge. And you're just doing this constantly throughout the fight. So instead of it taking, 1, 2, or 3 priorities to kill this character, it's taking 3, 4, or 5 priorities to kill this character, which is a lot higher than the average, which makes this guy as good defensively as he is, even though he doesn't have like endurance or revive or anything like that. So I don't really have anything negative to say about this character. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind, I guess there's 2 things. The first one is that his AoE green card is a long animation, which thank God it is. I don't even want to imagine what it would be like fighting against this character if it was a short animation AoE green card like Ultra Gohan has. And then the second thing is he is not immune to attribute downgrades and abnormal conditions. So things like Kid Buu's card draw speed down, things like fusing Super Vegito's card draw speed down, Kid Goku from GT Goku's Solar Flare can actually immobilize this character, and you could get a free Rising Rush off on him from that point. But those are very, very minor things that I think I'm actually glad are applicable, because like we're getting to a point where like there has to be some kind of flaw in each character. We can't just be releasing characters that actually have no flaws. When they're introducing mechanics like this guy does with this gauge and with how strong his ultimate is, I'm kind of glad that they gave him some of those flaws, because otherwise it would be much more of a nightmare. It would kind of remind me of like Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, just with how annoying he is to fight. This guy can certainly feel annoying to fight. I won't disagree with that, but yeah, I don't really think there is an argument, at least in terms of just rankings on this list. I don't think there is an argument to have anybody else in this #1 spot than I can't think of any character. Fusing Super Vegito is cool, but you gotta at least invest in them to be able to fuse. And then it's like, is the fused Super Vegito even as good as this character? Ultimate Gohan provides a lot of utility to the team. He's a flexible character. He's doing all these things. He's not on this guy's level, I don't think. Gogeta Blue got a lot better after this guy released. And I think Gogeta Blue can definitely pose a big issue for this character. But this guy could very easily turn around and ultimate and one-shot them very fast. So I feel very, very confident about having this character at #1 on the list. And that is going to round out the top 10 that I am going to have for my July top 10 characters list. There might be a second July top 10, depending on if we get an LF release that warrants being in here. But just to quickly recap the list, we have #10, LF Zenkai Kid Buu. #9, we have Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Kid Gohan, or Kid Gohan, Teen Gohan, whatever. #8, we have Ultra UI San Goku. 6 and 7 were a shared spot between Ultra Golden Frieza and LF Super Baby 2. 5, we have Zenkai LF Fusion Zamasu. 3 and 4 were also a shared spot between fusing Gogeta Blue and LF Purple Ultimate Gohan. 2 was fusing LF Super Vegito, and then 1 was Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Let me know what you guys think of the rankings down below. Do you agree or disagree with any of these placements? Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.